Hello students, today we're going to talk about academic language, but before we begin, what I'd like for you to do, you will notice in your folder, there is a worksheet or a handout if you will, that says academic language video practice. I'd like for you to print off a hard copy of that or have access to that sheet as we actually go through the video. Your sheet should look something like what you're seeing on the screen right now. Let's say academic language video practice, and then I'll have these categories here. So go ahead and put that off. I'll put that to the side. You will not build it up until go a little bit further into the presentation, but you will need that as you're working through. All right, let's go ahead and begin. In front of you, you should see a PowerPoint that says academic language, EDU 2016. So our objectives for today, we're actually going to define academic language as it is agreed upon by the Thomas University Education Division. We're going to look at how academic language is being used and identify those components of it. And then we'll actually practice identifying various aspects of academic language in video, which you will need that sheet that we just asked you to put off to the side for right now. So just to kind of start us off with something kind of fun, I'm going to play this video in various English dialects, just to give you an idea that even though we may all be speaking English, we may have different understandings of what is being communicated.
Hey boys and girls, so today I'm going to do a video that's probably the most requested video that I get, and that is a video purely dedicated to accents. Be forewarned, some of them probably aren't perfect, but I tried my best. So let's carry on. This is what I normally sound like. I may have a New Jersey accent on some words, but I think for the most part this is pretty much Middle American. This is mostly New York City accent with the exception of Manhattan. And some people think that most people from New Jersey talk like this too, but that simply ain't true. Because if your home is in South Jersey, then you probably sound like this. I'll have wheat toast with butter. No one hardly gets the Boston accent right. Pardon me, but we're not from New York, people. You know, it really grinds my gears when I hear people trying to do a southern accent. Y'all think we all sound like this guy. What you mean, this guy? What'd this guy ever do to you? Be right back, I gotta fix my tractor. Yeah! This is one of my favorites. Apparently, when polled, a good portion of people voted the Midwestern accent to sound the most pleasant. I don't want to toot my own horn here, but I agree. I'm not sure about this guy, but I'm Navajo, and I think we have the best accent. Whoa, did you just see that guy fall off his board? Yeah, man, I totally just wiped out and that girl got it on film. Oh my god, I can't believe I got that hella hot guy losing his shorts on camera. What's up, this is your girl Sean. No, just because I talk like this don't necessarily mean I'm African American. Yes, I did grow up in the city, which is 70% African American, 25% Hispanic, but I do fall into that 5% of other. You ain't born with your accent, and therefore race cannot determine it. It's learned. Believe that. Hello and welcome to the United States of the 1940s. You know when gas used to be 20 cents a gallon? What? How much is it in the future? Yeah, see, I'm gonna whack this guy, see? What, does that mean something different in the future? Bagels, eh? Sorry, this project I'm working on is preventing me from going on a boat. Orale, vato, come here. What you waiting for, man? Come on, I've been waiting forever. Me don't think me can do a Jamaican accent, but for you, me go and try. Not sure if I can do Irish either, but it was a popular request, so I'll try it out. Right, so most people that do an English accent tend to exaggerate it, and it ends up sounding like, hear ye, I am fully aware that no one speaks like this in England. And yes, contrary to popular belief, I, along with many other educated Americans, can point to England on a map. Right then, yeah, this accent always reminds me of Dick Van Dyke in Mary Poppins. I've not met one American person that can do an Aussie accent. Most likely this one included. Is it time to go yet? No, really, I am starved. I have not eaten since this morning. I know, right? This guy's taking forever. Hello, my English is not very good. Let me get my friend for you. Ciao, ciao, what can I help you find? You not looking for nothing? Hey, what are you calling me over here for? He's always so hot-headed. I tell him to relax, but he doesn't listen to me. Hoy! Enough fighting, huh? Don't fight! Ay, nako, my gas. I don't know how I sound to speak English. 我会说一点英语，可是我不说得很好。This Chinese accent sounds like a pizza chow. This Kanto accent. Hi, I would like to say this is my Japanese accent. Thank you. Don't buy that shampoo. It's for thin hair. You have a very thick hair. Honey, how your mom? Tell her I say hi. How she do? Okay, talk to you later. After this video, let's get something to eat. Chicken finger fat cut from Grease Trucks, how about that? But no, how about you just come to my house and my wife will cook you some muscle chop? Hey, what about me? Both of you always forget about me. How about we get that goat dancing, see?
Now, that was kind of fun just to watch, but if you think about it, there were some accents or some words or phrases in there that you may not be familiar with. For example, one of them said, in one of the accents, he said, toot my own horn. Another one, he said, hella hot guy. Another one, he said, believe that. Two more, one of them was whack this guy, and the last one was chicken finger fat cat. So, depending on where I live, I may not have an understanding or a context for what those phrases actually mean. Well, that's kind of a way to bridge to begin to talk about what do we mean when we talk about academic language. According to Melanie Hunley, who is one of the experts in the field of academic language, we refer to this particular language as that of the school, content, or discipline of what the languages the students need in order so that they can understand, so that they can communicate and perform in that content area. Language isn't just the spoken word, but it's also part of what is written, as well as the oral language structure. And it also includes those thinking structures to help students organize those ideas around the content that is being taught. For example, if I put this up on your screen, there's a bear in a plain brown wrapper doing flip-flops on 78, taking pictures and passing out green signs. Well, you know all of the words that are in this phrase. However, when you put it together, what does that really mean? Take a moment, look at that, reread it, and see if you can figure out what is that phrase actually saying. If you look at the actual definition, if you will, of what that phrase means, it refers to a law enforcement officer in an unmarked patrol car going back and forth across the median on Highway 78, using a radar and issuing speeding tickets. Well, depending on the context in which that is presented, you may or may not have any idea of what that initial sentence is saying. For example, if I had told you that when you read this sentence, I want you to think about using a CB radio, some of you might have said, oh, I know, okay, so we're using a CB radio to talk about perhaps police officer or patrolling the highway. Now, some of you may be even wondering, what is a CB radio? It's all about the context in which you present the language. This is the same for when you think about how you are presenting the language of the content of what you are teaching to your students. You may be using words that they already know, but the way that you present the language may actually be preventing them from understanding what it is that you're teaching. So when we talk about academic language, there's going to be some specific things that we're going to ask you as a Thomas University teacher candidate to begin to identify. Keep in mind, academic language is the language of the school or the classroom setting. This is the language that we use to teach students and not just vocabulary words. Don't misconfuse or don't confuse the words academic language and vocabulary, because it is more than just vocabulary words. Some other things to keep in mind is that sometimes when we are so immersed in our content, meaning that we are so well versed in it, we've been doing it time and time again, year after year, that we assume that the student already knows a certain piece of the language, and we teach under that assumption. That's not a good practice to have, because a lot of times your students are sitting in their class and they're not familiar with the language that you're speaking. So when we're teaching our content, we need to keep in mind that not only are we using the words or the language of the content that we're teaching, but we must be aware of how we're teaching it to our students. So for this particular talk, I want you to identify academic language as the function, the demands, and the vocabulary of how language is being used. I'm going to talk more about each of these specifically in just a moment. So what does academic language look like in the content areas? Well, if I talk about the academic language functions in English, math, science, and social studies, you'll see that there are some crossovers. For example, the word analyze appears in all three of those categories, but not in math. If you look at other words, for example, compare, you see compare in English, but you also see compare in math. Depending on how I use the language in English, may not actually determine on how that same language or that same word is being used in math. And this is where some of our students struggle because they can't differentiate between the two. When we talk about academic language demands, you'll see that reading, writing, listening, speaking are the same across the content areas, but also we need to be aware of discourse and syntax, which we'll get to that in just a minute. And finally, academic language vocabulary also falls under the language demands, but these are those tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 vocabulary words that students need to be familiar with. So let's begin to look at each one of these specifically. Language function. When I want to identify the language function of the lesson, I'm identifying the overall purpose of how the language is being used in the lesson. Once the lesson has been completed, your students should be able to walk away from that and know the purpose of the lesson by using the language function words. The function is often the result of how the language is used. And for example, if we talk about the big idea or the main point of the lesson. Many times, we pull the function directly from the main verb of the standard. And what I mean by that is many times you'll see in the standard where it'll say the students will be able to analyze a piece of literature, or the students will be able to evaluate the quality of a text, or what about the students will be able to prove mathematical equations. Each one of those words, analyze, evaluate, and prove, is considered a language function. But I want to caution you here that sometimes just because the language of the standard is analyze, evaluate, or prove, you want to make sure that that is actually the central purpose of the lesson. They should align. If the standard says the students will be able to identify, but you are really saying that the students will be able to analyze, you need to recognize the difference between those two. So we'll talk more about that a little bit later. Language demands. Well, what are language demands? If the function is the main idea of the lesson and how the language is being used, those demands are how we actually use the language in context to the content that's being taught. Those include those oral and written structures, which we call discourse. It includes syntax, which we'll get to in just a moment, as well as the vocabulary words. So when we're saying language demands, we're saying that this, how the students will be able to deliver the function, remember that's the main idea, the big idea of the lesson, through the use of reading, writing, listening or speaking, or demonstrating. So basically, it is the condition in which students are reading, writing, listening, speaking, or demonstrating the language. For example, if I look at a math standard, this math standard says that students will be able to explain what a point on the graph of proportional relationship means in terms of the situation, with special attention to points 0, 0, and 1 where R is the unit weight. Well, what is the function? For this particular standard, the function is explain, because we want our students to be able to explain what the point X, Y means on a graph of proportional relationship. Notice that word explain comes from the standard. It's the verb. also the main idea or central focus of the lesson. Well, how are we going to get the students to explain? How are we going to get the students to demonstrate the function? What conditions are we going to use? Well, one of the language demands might be something like this. By plotting the points on the graph. The word plotting is another word to represent how the students are writing down how they will actually explain the points on the graph. Another demand or discourse, if you will, is by clearly defining the relationship between the points x and y and how it relates to the context in which it is used in the situation presented. When I use the words clearly defining, not only does that say how the students will explain, remember, explain is the function of the lesson, but it also lets the teacher know that the students can either write or speak on how they will define the relationship. So that's the condition in which they are explaining what the point x, y on the graph is actually a representation of. Let's take it a step further. Discourse. Discourse is part of the language domain. These are those structures that are written or oral, and it's how the students or members of a discipline will talk, write, or participate in knowledge construction. Discipline-specific discourse has very distinctive features. For example, how does a formal speech presentation differ from a training talk? How does a written essay differ from a lab report? How does a debate differ from an informal explanation? Well, these are all examples of student discourse. You will notice each one of these types of discourse has a specific set of features that govern it, whether they're implicit or explicit. For example, a formal speech has very specific points that need to be delivered. Whereas if I'm having my students turn and talk to a neighbor, I may be looking for something specifically, but I'm not asking them to deliver their talk in a very specific manner. Let's look at the second example. How does a written essay differ from a lab report? Well, a lab report, you might have things like a hypothesis, or materials that are being collected, or how the process of the lab was actually conducted. This is very different from a written essay, which may be written in the form of a narrative or an informational passage. Both of these have different structures, and it's important for students to understand the difference of those structures when they are relaying the information to the content. Finally, let's look at the last example. It says, how does a debate differ from an informal explanation? Well, when you're involved with a debate, there are very specific guidelines that you must follow in order to hold a debate. That's very different from an informal explanation where it may just be telling what I'm thinking or what I'm feeling. Let's go back to this one. When we look at discourse in math, we may think, well, how in the world can students orally or written tell what they're learning in math? If you think about it, discourse in math can simply be how students write out or verbally share the answer to equations of a word problem. They might include a discipline-specific vocabulary to address how they solve the problem. This lets the teacher know that how they are solving the problem by including the vocabulary, whether or not that's correct. Students may also use a written format where they keep a foldable or a graphic organizer. This is another way that students can show their learning, or another type of discourse, if you will. Keep in mind that a graphic organizer may also be used as a language support, which we'll talk about in just a minute. Well, what is syntax? Syntax is also a type of language name. This is a set of conventions for organizing symbols, words, and phrases together into structures. For example, syntax can refer to the structure of a sentence, its length, word order, grammar, arrangement of phrases, active and passive voice. For example, following example, an example again, if you will, of syntax. Delicious is apple the red, period. Well, I stated that there was a period at the end of that, but does that make it a good sentence? No. We know that a sentence has to be in a capital letter. It has to have a subject. It has to have a verb agreement that makes sense. And my example did not. If I were to say the red apple was delicious, period, that is a correct syntactical structured sentence. Students need to be aware of these things because the way that the syntax is presented in the language can affect their understanding of the content that's being taught. Now, what might that look like in math? Well, syntax in math might be a graph. It might be the symbolic representations. For example, in an equation that says a squared plus b squared equals c squared, we know that a is not really the letter A. It represents something else. We also know that graphs have to be read with the use of keys, with the use of titles and subtitles. Those structures that are in place help us to understand what the purpose of the syntax of the graph is. Moving on, what are language supports? When we talk about language supports, we're talking about the tools that you build into your lesson to help the students understand how the language or the content is being used. Some examples of graphic organizers, sentence frames, anchor charts, and maps and provides, things like that. Let's look at a couple. Here are examples in language anchor charts. If you look at the anchor charts, they will help support how the students are using the language. For example, in the first picture, schema, students may not know what schema actually means, but if they have this anchor chart to refer to, it will help them to understand what is the definition of schema and how it relates to the content of what's being taught. Same thing in the second example, evaluating expressions. Students may not understand what an expression is, but this language support as an anchor chart can help them understand how they work through that. Another type of language support is the sentence starters, or sentence frames. Sometimes students have trouble being able to use the language in context, and so these help to guide students' use of language. Other examples might be graphic organizers. They help students begin to understand how the content and the structure of the content, how it's being put together. Remember that a graphic organizer might also be an example of discourse on how the student is able to communicate their understanding of the language of the content. Now, here's what I'd like for you to do. This will be the last activity for academic language. I'd like for you to go ahead and pick out that paper, that handout that we had before. We're going to watch a short video. As we're watching the video, I want you to identify those language functions, language demands, including syntax, discourse, and vocabulary, as well as language supports and structures. When you finish that, bring a hard copy to our next face-to-face class, and you'll be able to see how you were able to identify those different areas of academic language.
Then we're going to do some predicting by using our inference wall and the word wall. REP is short for what? Okay, learning goals for today. I can identify information from the story and the language goal. I can support my answers with details and evidence from the story. Right now we're reading the story, The Outsiders, and my learning target was to make sure that the kids can dig into the text and be able to pull information out of the text and somehow make that text relevant to what is going on in their lives today. Okay, I'm going to go over today's goals. We're going to go through some vocab knowledge, some prediction, Chapter 9 questions, and read aloud. All right, and then we're going to do some predicting by using our inference wall and the word wall. These are still words that are relevant to Chapter 9. So echo them after I say them, please. Rumble.
Rumble.
Sophisticated.
Sophisticated.
Show me sophisticated. Can you show me sophisticated? Okay, well, sitting a little taller, I like that. Rep.
Rep.
Cooler.
Cooler.
Acrobatics.
Acrobatics.
Digested.
Digested.
In a jam.
In a jam.
Mimicking.
Mimicking.
Oh, you guys are good. JD.
JD.
And menace.
Menace.
With a word wall, I think it's important that students need to know certain words from the story. The story's not going to mean anything to them if it's above their understanding. A lot of slang in the story, the outsiders. So the students need to know this before we can dig into the story, or they're not going to have an idea of what the story is going to be about. They need to know what these words mean. So that's why I have the word wall, and I make sure that if I see words in there that I think the students are going to struggle over, it goes on the vocabulary wall. What does it mean to rumble? Let's get ready to rumble. There you go. Nolan, what does it mean?
It's a fight.
It's a fight. A rumble, in this case, is a fight between gangs, and I have the Crips and the Bloods up here. Okay, do we have gangs in Mount Vernon?
Yes.
Yeah? Have you ever heard of fights going on between the gangs? Digested means things that make us go. Okay, good job. You're thinking about it. You're reflecting. You're going, why is that happening? Okay, good job. In a jam, if you're in a jam, you are stuck or in trouble. In a jam, you are in trouble. It doesn't mean you literally go into a jam jar. Mimicking. Mimicking. What do you think it could mean? Walid?
To copy someone.
To copy someone? To copy someone. What I'd like you to do right now, boys and girls, is I would like you to use the words from Chapter 9 up here, and I would like you to make a prediction using the inference wall of what you think Chapter 9 is going to be about. Remember, there's the words rumble, sophisticated, spruced up. Okay? Spruced up means getting fixed up. What do you think they're going to be doing in Chapter 9? And you can use any evidence from this word wall and the words from the pocket chart. Are there any questions? Turn to your partners and make a prediction. Think, pair, share of what you think Chapter 9 is about.
We say rumble because there's the handcuffs up there, and we think they're gonna get fixed up because of the handcuffs, you know?
And prison, cooler, like prison, they have the
Oh, and sophisticated because of the crown over there.
How the inference wall came about is that I was working with the science teachers. Of course, I think it's very important to connect all the curriculum areas. So we were talking, and the science teachers were saying, well, we're going to be going over inferences. The students need to know inferences. So I brought it into the language arts classroom. I thought this was a perfect way to bring in even more realia, set it up on a wall, and say, okay, make a guess, an educated guess based on the evidence on the wall, what the story is going to be about. Not only does it engage them, but it helps me to check their prior knowledge, their predicting skills, what they understand, and if they are getting what I want them to get out of the wall. Okay, let's make a prediction from, again, the pocket chart and the inference wall. And tell me what you use to make your prediction. What do you think is going to happen in Chapter 9? What do you think is going to happen, Gladys?
Somebody's gonna get in jail,
Somebody's going to get thrown in jail? What gave you that idea?
like for the handcuffs and the word cooler and all that.
Okay, so we have the handcuffs and the word cooler. Good job. Jayla.
I think someone's gonna get fixed up because of the hair cream up there and the comb.
Okay, well, what tells you they're going to get fixed up on the word wall?
Well, because it says that they get fixed up handsomely, and then there's the comb and the gel over there.
I saw some hands going up. Kendra?
There's going to be a fight because of the word rumble, like between the socias and the greasers.
I have to tell you, I think I can empathize with my students, what it was like to be a 7th grader and sit in a classroom and not comprehend what I was reading. The reading was above me. And I think that if teachers would have brought in, made stories more relevant, made their teaching more relevant to what was going on in my world at that time, I would have been a better student.
Alright, so we'll go back to that sheet. If you need to go back to the video, I'll post that online so that way you can look at it. Be prepared to bring in that sheet and talk about it at our next face-to-face class meeting. Alright, so today we talked about academic language, and we talked about how language functions, language domains, especially including syntax, discourse, and vocabulary, will play a significant role in helping your students understand the language of the content. So we'll speak more about that on Saturday, but that's all we need for this lesson. Thank you.